Hey guys, it's Amber from Notable Ink. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing a brand new Altenew Paint a Flower Sunflower and a new coloring medium. Altenew has just released Woodless Watercolor Pencils. It's a set of 24. This video is part of a blog hop, so be sure to follow the link down below and leave a comment on my blog for a chance to win. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. So here is the brand new Paint a Flower Sunflower set. It's a 4x6 stamp set. Inside you have the customary trifold, which has all of the inspiration, including colors that you can use and also other products that you can pair this with. So lots of suggestions in here to get you started. I love the two-tone effect of the card that they have there on the left. I think that's a really cool look. And of course we have the brand new Woodless Watercolor Pencils. I wish that you guys could feel these. They're so heavy. I was surprised at how heavy they are. Now my camera wouldn't zoom in on this and focus, so sorry about that, but it just gives you a little bit of information about the watercolor pencils. There are 24 colors that are currently included, and one of the colors is new. So Altenew keeps teasing us with these new colors, and I'm dying to find out when the new ink pads are going to come out to coordinate with those. So here you have one of them here, and each one of them is labeled as you can see here. It does focus on this. So this is Ruby Red Woodless Watercolor Pencil, and so there's no wood. You have the coloring medium throughout the entire pencil. So the whole thing is the coloring product, which is really great. There's no waste, and like I said, they're super hefty and just feel like a really great quality product. So I'm just going to arrange them in rainbow order because of course before I use my medium I want to go ahead and swatch them. So I have a scrap piece of watercolor paper here, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a scribble on here. I want to make sure I leave enough space so that I have room for all of the colors. And first, I'm going to test out kind of like my swatching, like is this going to be enough pigment to swatch? I have a damp brush here, so I'm just going to draw out that color and see how light the pigment gets the further I draw it out on the page. So I'll go ahead and do this first one in real time, and then we'll speed things up so that we can also get to the creating of the card, because I want to show you how these perform with an actual project. There I was just testing to make sure that I was going to have enough room on the page for all 24 colors. So let's speed this up. So I went ahead and I scribbled all of them right next to each other. I really only had one set of colors that mixed with each other, but otherwise this is a pretty good swatch technique. Of course you can leave space in between if you like. And I'll share with you the swatch chart that Altenew has on their website so that you can see all of the color names. There were 3 of the colors that are really light, which didn't surprise me at all. So you'll see that a lot of these colors are super vibrant, very pigmented, and even when the color is drawn all the way out, they're still very pigmented. There you can see those 2 teal colors are very light. That's to be expected. It's Mountain Mist and Dewdrop, which are really light ink colors, so I'm not surprised by that. The other really light color is Coral Bliss, which again is another very light color. But otherwise you can see they're super vibrant and just gorgeous colors. I think they picked a good mix of colors for the rainbow. So the new color is, so there I'm just going to point out the Coral Bliss and then the 2 light teals, which is these Dewdrop and Mountain Mist, which is right to the left of it. The green that's next to that, which is almost like an earth tone color, is Moss. And then at the very end we have Jet Black. And I'm going to show you a new splatter technique which may have replaced my Jet Black ink spray. Here are the color swatches all labeled for you. You can grab this off of the Altenew website and use that for your reference or make your own color chart. I'm going to go ahead and ink up the stamp with Evening Gray Crisp Dye ink, and I have a piece of watercolor paper here that's cut into a slimline shape. So for me, I use a 3.5 by 8.5 typically if I do a standard slimline card. Sometimes I'll make them shorter and only go to 7 inches in height. I decided I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going in with Moon Rock. I actually stamped it twice in Evening Gray and then decided I would just use a darker gray to get to where I was going. So I'm just stamping this twice, and I'm totally okay if it doesn't completely stamp because you know what, these colors are going to blend into the watercolor. Here I have the Moss watercolor pencil, and I'm just laying down some color. This is going to be my test leaf so I can see how these colors blend out, how they draw out into the watercolor paper. And I decided that I wanted to have more than one color here. Now you can see because I use Crystite ink, that's also water activated, so you'll see that blend into the colors a little bit. So I decided I'll add some grass field, and you want to be careful about using watercolor pencils. The same would be the case with like Inktense pencils. When you draw on wet paper, it's a little harder to get those pigments to move. They kind of want to stay where you put them when you apply it directly from the pencil onto wet paper. So I find it's best to either use them on dry paper, or if you need to add additional color once the paper is wet, then go ahead and touch your damp brush to the pencil like I'm doing here and apply it to the page that way. You're going to get a better blend if you use that technique if you're going wet to wet. Hopefully that makes sense. So here I'm just going to go ahead and fill in my leaves, and you can see I've sped it up because it's the same process over and over, but you can see what a beautiful color blend that you get between the moss, which is kind of like a dark earthy green, more of like that olive green, and the grass fields, which is more of a traditional bright green. I love the color blend. And then of course with the evening gray and the moon rock that I stamped it in, you also get just a little bit of a color blend from that. As you wet that ink, it kind of activates just slightly, but you'll still retain your outline edges with that ink. So I've gone ahead and filled in the stems the same way and just picking up color directly from the pencil there. And I have a number 2 Princeton snap brush here, just testing out a new brush. These snap brushes are okay. They're a little more flexible than I like. I usually like a little more stiffness to the brush. They don't snap back as much as I expected. The white bristles are a little bit softer than the golden Taklon. At this point, I didn't really have a plan for the colors of my sunflowers, but I knew I didn't want to go just traditional yellow. So I've added a little bit of heartbeat. I'm adding some fresh lemon, and I'll also add some yellow ochre to this just to kind of add some deeper shadows. And then I'll bring my wet brush to it. So generally when I'm using watercolor pencils or Inktense pencils or other types of watercolor medium that are in a pencil, I'll lay down the color, kind of just scribble it on, and then I'll come in with a wet brush. So I have 3 colors down here, and then I'll come in with the wet brush and I'll just dampen that. What you'll find is when you bring the wet brush to those watercolor pigments, they just kind of melt away and blend together without any effort at all. So you can see I'm just wetting those areas and they just kind of just melt away, which is really nice. If you are brand new to watercolor and you're maybe intimidated by the tube paints or the pan paints, this might be a good stepping stone for you. You might want to give the watercolor pencils a try and see how those work for you, and then move on to the other mediums. But I think it's a really nice medium to kind of start with. So I decided, since I have the slimline card, I have all of this real estate to use. So I decided that I would go ahead and stamp this image one more time. Now I wiped off the ink from this leaf here because I didn't want to over stamp it over on top of the flower, but I wasn't paying attention at all to the stem that's on the left-hand side. So you can see I'm focusing on this leaf, not even thinking about that stem on the left that totally goes over the flower. But that's not a problem at all. I will be able to fix that. The coloring that I end up doing covers that up just fine. But you're going to see that I actually make that whole situation worse before it gets better. So here I've stamped it in a darker ink, and look, hello, like what? Just wasn't even paying attention. So then I decided that I would use a wet brush and see if I could lift the Crystite ink. No, it doesn't really lift like that, you guys. The Crystite inks don't lift as easily as a watercolor would. So I go ahead and blot that up. I leave it alone and I'll go back to it later. But like I said, the watercolor pencil ends up covering that up just fine. So I decided at this point what I would do is switch to a rainbow colored sunflower situation going on. So I started with my red, then I kind of have an orange, and now I have my yellow flower. So I will go back at a later point and darken up that first bloom so that it's more red. I'm popping up the colors on the screen just in case I missed kind of telling you which color I'm on. This will be like the blue-green flower, and you can see that I'm working to cover up some of those areas. For this yellow flower, it was looking pretty boring, so I decided to add a bit of turquoise to that as well. For the blue flower, I'm going to be using Desert Night and Ultramarine, and you just get some really pretty dark pigments in here. I really love the colors that Altenew picked for these. Here you can see I'm taking a little more heartbeat back to that first flower to make sure that it looks red in comparison to the orange one next to it. Then for the purple, I have Lavender Fields and Rubelite, both gorgeous colors, and it's the same process. I just lay down kind of scribbles of 2 to 3 colors and then come in with the damp brush to blend all of that out. And it doesn't require much water at all. So this is another really good medium to take on the go with you. Like if you're going to your kids' practice or you're traveling, this is a great medium to use because you barely need any water at all. One of the Altenew water brushes would be a great companion to this set, especially if you're on the go. So I've added oolong tea, that was the brown that you see for the centers, and then I'm also going to add some jet black to these centers to add a little more depth of color. The oolong tea goes perfectly with that warm gray that I stamped the image in. So here's some jet black, so you can see I'm just deepening up those shadows, kind of putting that just around the outer edge of the centers of the flowers and dotting that on in the center to add a little bit more depth. So now I'm going to deepen up this yellow flower still looked weird to me, so I added a little bit more green to that. And here's the oolong tea. So I wanted to add some splatter, so I was thinking about how I would do that. I started off by trying to just draw some on my glass mat, not very successfully, as you can see. The pencils are nice and hard, and since the glass mat is smooth without any tooth, it was hard to get some to rub off. You can see I got a little bit of the shavings off there. So I'll try and splatter with that. And then I decided I'll just wet the brush and take it directly from the pencil and splatter it on that way. Heck yeah, that worked really well. So I'm going to splatter on a bunch of the oolong tea. And these are fine splatters because I'm using, I think that's probably a number 6 round brush. And you can see I keep taking it from the pencil, a little bit from the glass mat. And I'm really liking how this looks. I'm definitely going to be adding some black splatter to this, but first thing I wanted to do was add my sentiment next to make sure we've got that in the right place. So I grabbed some sentiments from the stamp set, and I love these little dainty scripty words along with your sans serif sub-sentiments. Those are some of my favorites. So here we have the jet black pencil, you guys, and this is a number 10 round brush. So I wanted bigger splatters of black. So I've loaded it up directly from the pencil and then tapping this on. You guys, totally replacing my jet black ink spray. This thing is awesome and I love it. I'm totally in love with it. So that just might be what takes over my splatter from now on. I think that guy is going to have to just take up residence in my desk caddy, so it's nice and handy. And that's it, you guys. Here's the finished card so you can see a close-up of all of those gorgeous colors. I'm glad that I did the rainbow card in the end because pretty much I wanted to use almost every color that was in the batch. I just really had to test them out, and I think that they're pretty awesome. I went ahead and labeled my swatches so that I would know which each one of the colors look like, and I'll just keep that handy so I can refer back to it. I hope you guys enjoyed this project today and swatching of our new color medium. I'm so excited to have another thing to color florals with. And be sure to check out the rest of the inspiration on our blog hop. I've got a link to that down below. If you like this video, give me a like, subscribe, and follow that blog post link down below. Leave a comment on my blog for a chance to win a gift card to Shop Altenew. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you real soon with more inspiration.